Welcome to the 42nd weekly Greater Brisbane update for 2025. This week we've got updates on the legal challenge to a controversial state government bill, education stuff-ups, metro bus issues, the start of this year's blitz on bloodsuckers, progress on filling Bribie Island's breakthroughs, and more. This update is sponsored by YB Painting Services, who have an exclusive discount for viewers of the Brisbane channel, and I have a discount for pet owners as well, but more on that later. We'll start with an update on a recent issue with some of Brisbane's metro buses. I'll share what happened and everything that I've been able to find out about it since last weekend. It all started when someone sent me video of one of Brisbane's metro buses that was stuck at the stop because doors would not close. The person who sent me the video said that they were stuck at the stop for about 10 minutes until the rain stopped, at which time the driver wiped the sensors on the door dry and was able to close it. The witness also mentioned that they had heard an announcement on the driver's radio that if any metro buses had their doors stuck open, that they should wipe the sensors dry to rectify the situation. The bus then continued on its route, but the doors that had been stuck open didn't open again for the rest of the journey. Passengers had to get on and off further down the vehicle. That was on the M1 headed towards 8 Mile Plains. I then had another person comment on the Instagram post that they had been on the same bus, but when I asked for more details, they said they were on the M2 heading from the UQ station. So it seems it happened to at least 2 metro buses that day, although I can't verify the details of the second one. Brisbane City Council have told me that they reviewed the driver reports and CCTV footage from the M1 vehicle, and they did correctly identify the route it was on, and they've said that the issue on that day was due to a shortcoming in their driver training. There is an override function that can close the doors by pressing and holding down the door's open button, which triggers a manual override, and in this case the driver didn't hold it down for long enough. They added that the Network Coordination Centre didn't have this level of detail when they were trying to remotely resolve the issue for drivers, so broadcast a message drivers could wipe the sensors. They've said that the issue can be avoided in future by providing further training on this particular feature of the vehicles. But perhaps the one unresolved question is, if the doors need to be overridden due to rain on multiple occasions, is there a way the sensor position or function could be redesigned to ensure it doesn't need to be overridden in the first place? I remember that this issue was occurring as far back as almost a year ago when this video was released, and it seems likely it's happened on at least 2 different metro buses this last weekend. I did find out that the door system is designed by Ventura Systems, and they say that, drawing from extensive experience in global markets with similar environmental challenges, the door systems incorporate advanced materials, intelligent design, and rigorous testing to withstand extreme temperatures, humidity, heavy rainfall, and coastal exposure. While the success of those efforts may have a question mark over it, at least Brisbane City Council will be working on their driver training to ensure that we don't have metro buses stuck at stations, blocking access to the buses behind them and clogging the network every time we get a downpour. So that's a good thing. Moving on. Now to something happening at a state level that affects people across all of Greater Brisbane and that points to a broader range of issues. This week, Queensland Supreme Court Judge Peter Callaghan handed down his judgment that the state government's temporary ban on prescription of puberty blockers to new patients under 18 with gender dysphoria was unlawful. This was due to correct processes not having been followed. Hours later, Queensland's Health Minister Tim Nicolas issued a directive that reinstated the ban. The original ban was implemented to patients not already receiving treatment and was in response to a Cairns sexual health clinic not following Australian guidelines in its delivery of hormone therapies to patients under 18. Nicolas also initiated an independent review into the evidence of providing hormone treatments and puberty blockers to adolescent trans patients. This is being led by Dr. Ruth Vine, former Australian Deputy Chief Medical Officer for Mental Health. The review is due to be handed down in November. However, Dr. Vine has been banned from making any public statement about the review. If questioned about the review by media, she must refer them to Queensland Health's media relations team. There was an independent review conducted in 2024 into the Queensland Children's Gender Service that found treatment was consistent with current national and international guidelines and that it should be expanded. The Queensland government rejected the review's recommendations in January this year. This week's Supreme Court decision was centred on the lack of adequate consultation before implementing the ban, and the only thing that complied with this requirement was a 22-minute Microsoft Teams meeting between the Director General of Queensland Health and Health Service Chief Executives. We may see a legal challenge to the new directive that re-implemented the ban, as there will need to be evidence that the directive is in the public interest. I'll keep you updated, but I definitely have some thoughts to share on this later in the video when I give my 2 cents. One thing the Queensland Government announced this week that most people would see as a positive thing is the launch of a child safety initiative that teaches children about safe spaces online and in real life. Called Australia's Biggest Child Safety Lesson, the initiative involves video lessons designed for early years and primary school-aged children. On Friday, over 50,000 children across the country joined the lesson on its first day, and over 500,000 children viewed the one delivered last year in total. The program is being delivered in partnership with the Daniel Morcombe Foundation, and the state government has allocated $1.5 million to deliver the program and the Day for Daniel, Australia's largest child safety education and awareness day, for the next 3 years. Something in a similar space, but perhaps more controversial, is the creation of a public child sex offender register, with new laws passing this week. As discussed in a previous update video, it will have 3 tiers. The first tier will be a publicly available website listing reportable offenders who have failed to comply with obligations and whose whereabouts are unknown. The second tier will allow residents to view photographs of reportable offenders in their area, and the third tier will allow parents or guardians to check on specific people who may have unsupervised contact with their children. 3 new laws have been created to prevent misuse of the information or vigilantism. A maximum sentence of 10 years imprisonment for intentionally harassing or intimidating an identified offender, or inciting others to do so, up to 3 years for behaviour likely to incite intimidation or harassment of an offender, and up to 3 years for unauthorised publication or dissemination of the information from the register. The importance of protecting children is something we can all agree on, but some may question the effectiveness of public registers as a way to help achieve that. I know from personal experience the impacts on children that this kind of assault can have, and discussed the topic in some detail in the My 2 Cents segment of the video linked here. You can watch that later, and I'll link it at the end of this video as well. Imagine finding out days before your final high school exam for a subject that you'd been taught the wrong topic and the exam would test something you hadn't learnt. Well, that's what happened to students in at least 9 Queensland schools, including a few in Brisbane last week. For years, ancient history students learnt about Augustus, the first Roman emperor, but this year the curriculum changed to instead cover Julius Caesar. Somehow, the message didn't get through to 9 schools, including these schools in the Greater Brisbane area. The students were provided support to cram for the exam, but still had to sit the test that had been set, despite some finding out less than a full day before the exam. But the Education Minister has said that students would not be disadvantaged by the bungle, with their exam results to be scaled with the internal exams they had already completed, which make up 75% of the students' total scores. How healthy is your part of Brisbane? The Wesfarmers Health Australia's Health Index results have been released, and Queensland's most and least healthy areas are both in Greater Brisbane. The healthiest was the Federal Division of Griffith on Brisbane's south side, with an index score of 234 when examining the key risk factors of high blood pressure, obesity, daily smoking and diabetes. For context, the national average is 107. The highest score nationally was 316 in New South Wales's Bradfield Division, and the lowest was in Barker in South Australia with a score of 55. Not far above Barker was our own Blair Division, which includes the Ipswich suburbs of Redbank Plains and Springfield Central. Their score was 58, up 12 points from last year when it was 46, the lowest score in the entire country. The results suggest that 2 in 5 Blair residents are obese, almost 1 in 3 has high blood pressure, and over 2/5 are at risk of developing type 2 diabetes. They're also more likely to smoke or vape than any other Queensland electorate. But I should point out that the data was collected through SISU self-service health check machines, and there were only around 416,000 people nationwide whose data informed the report, so it's not necessarily an accurate representation of the populations of each area, just a rough clue. I think we need a more positive update, so let's look at a new initiative in the Redlands that provides the community with free on-demand access to sports equipment. A trial has been set up which will see sports equipment lockers which can be unlocked using a smartphone app to access equipment including footballs and basketballs that can be used in the public spaces hosting the lockers. The trial will run until October next year at Beth Boyd Park in Thornside and Bribie Bay Esplanade in Ormiston. This is in partnership with Sportsbox and will come at no cost to ratepayers. It's the first trial of the equipment in Australia. While the sports boxes may not yet have proven themselves, someone who has is the sponsor of this video, YB Painting Services. They recently won first or second place in 5 different categories of the Master Painters Australia Queensland Awards, and when you see their professionalism and the quality of their work, it's no surprise. With fixed pricing and a 5-year warranty on all their work, you can be sure there'll be no unpleasant surprises. Claim your 10% discount by scanning this QR code or the link in the video description. Moving back to Brisbane City, and while we've been covering aspects of the Woolloongabba Priority Development Area, which will include the Brisbane Live Arena and over 16,000 new residential homes, one detail that seems to have flown under the radar until this week is the removal of special flood protection measures. The measures called for developments to account for a 1% annual exceedance probability, or AEP. This means that there is a 1 in 100 chance of flooding in any given year. But Brisbane City Council's guidelines are for a 2% AEP. This is good news for developers who can save money and increase their profit margins, but some warn that it's future residents who may bear the cost if flooding does occur. Keep in mind, the current state government has pledged to remove a ban on developers making political donations. But in any case, the removal of the restrictions will mean the area has the same flooding regulations applied as the rest of Brisbane. While we're on flooding and the effects of weather events, let me share some footage of progress filling in the areas of erosion and tidal breakthrough on Bribie Island, supplied courtesy of Droner AU. Check out his YouTube channel if you haven't yet. I've been watching it for a while, but when one of the excavators got bogged with the tide rising fast, I just had to share it here. Breakthroughs 2 and 3 are scheduled to be closed and nourishment of the island between Breakthrough 1 and 3 commenced by the end of November, with all dredging and associated construction works scheduled to be completed by the end of April in 2026. And staying up in Moreton Bay, last week we mentioned state government funding for a new wildlife hospital in Darbee. Well, Moreton Bay City Council have granted an initial 10-year lease to the Moreton Bay Wildlife Hospital Foundation at a cost of $1 per year. The peppercorn lease will enable the foundation to establish and operate the Moreton Bay Wildlife Hospital and Education Hub on the Darbee land. Once completed, it will mean that sick and injured wildlife will no longer need to be transported 2 hours away for treatment on the Sunshine Coast or in Brisbane. That's great news for Moreton Bay wildlife, but I can also recommend an exceptional veterinary hospital up that way that is currently offering a special 15% discount off consultation fees for anyone that mentions this video. The Exotics Vet is an independently owned and operated vet practice in Redcliffe. With a fully equipped hospital, they can do blood tests, ultrasound, radiographs, endoscopies and surgical procedures for your pet, and they'll treat pretty much anything except cats, dogs and livestock. Far too many for me to list in this short promo. They also offer routine procedures like desexing and microchipping. The dedicated team have over 30 years experience in exotics veterinary practice between them. Click this QR code or the link in the video description to find out more, and don't forget to mention this video to get your 15% discount. While we love our pets, the creatures I think we all love to hate are mosquitoes, and this week Brisbane's first aerial mosquito sprays for the season took flight. They'll spray some 500 hectares in areas including Port of Brisbane, Pinkenba, Tingalpa, Hemmant, and along Bulimba and Tingalpa Creeks, as well as Mud Island, St Helena Island, and Green Island. The aerial program is activated whenever a salt marsh mosquito hatch is detected by expert entomologists. While we'd all be aware of measures that we can take in our own homes to control mosquito breeding, like emptying out containers that may collect rainwater, there's another recommendation that I found works really well, and I'm going to share that on the Brisbane Channel's Instagram account as well as the posts tab of this channel. It's particularly helpful for people who may have small ponds or still water features. The next update is to bring attention to a petition to Queensland Parliament. The Human Rights Act 2019 does not recognise housing as a human right. As the petitioner Paul Slater from Northwest Community Group says, while the Human Rights Act provides protections for health, education, privacy and family, these rights fall apart when someone has no roof over their head. The petition, which currently has almost 6,000 signatures, calls on the Queensland Government to amend the Act to include the right to adequate housing, including rental and social housing, in line with international human rights obligations. I've put a link in the video description for anyone who wants to check it out or sign the e-petition. A while back we mentioned that Beam, the e-scooter and e-bike hire company, had exited Logan around the same time that Brisbane City Council kicked them out of Brisbane. Well, Logan is getting a new e-scooter and e-bike hire service. This week the council launched a new partnership with Hello Ride, the Australian arm of Chinese company Hello Bike. The company says it will be trialling footpath riding detection and automatic speed governance technology to make riding safer for both riders and pedestrians. There's still no word on exactly where in Logan they'll be rolled out or how many will be available for use. Meanwhile, in Ipswich, a trial of Beam e-scooters has been terminated before it was due to conclude. I haven't been able to find details of the reason, but Ipswich councillors had expressed concerns over the safety of the devices, despite there being only one minor safety issue reported during the trial. If you find these updates helpful, do give the video a thumbs up, which helps the channel, and you can also say thanks by buying me a coffee. There's a link in the video description. You can also become a member to support the channel and access a range of perks depending on the level of membership. That's it for the updates. Now it's time for me to give my 2 cents on issues raised in the updates. This time I'm going to make a prediction for something I expect to happen in November. We saw the way the Queensland Health Minister responded to the Supreme Court decision that the implementation of a halt to hormone therapies for adolescents with gender dysphoria was illegal, almost immediately reinstating the ban. I'm not going to dig into what the evidence is in support or opposition of the therapies themselves, as it's not my area of expertise, and the validity of the therapies themselves is not the focus of this particular discussion. We do know that the Health Department commissioned an independent review into the evidence for hormone therapies and their delivery to minors with gender dysphoria. Based on the patterns we've seen emerging in how the current state government does things, I think it's safe to predict what will happen when the independent report is handed to the government. The review into pill testing was withheld from the public or other members of the parliament until the laws banning it were to be passed, and then we discovered the decision conflicted with the report findings, but the law was already in effect by then. There was a review into homelessness that they are also withholding. So knowing that they have preemptively put a gag order on the doctor conducting the review into hormone treatments, I suspect that things could go 2 ways. If the findings of the review support the government's view that the evidence suggests that hormone therapies being given to teenagers is harmful to their health, whether mental or physical, then they will release the report publicly and make the ban permanent. But if it conflicts with their preconceived ideas and illustrates benefits to the therapy, then we will never see the report and they'll still make the ban permanent, despite their being fully aware of the evidence suggesting that it's a bad call. I personally think that if taxpayers are funding an independent review or inquiry into anything, it should be illegal for any government body to withhold the results. We paid for it, we should be able to view it. And don't think for a second that I'm trying to say that only the LNP would try to sweep information under the rug when it doesn't suit their narrative. While I feel the current LNP leadership has been particularly impudent in their rejection of any independent research they don't agree with, I wouldn't put it past any political party to do the same. The only difference may be that it's to a greater or lesser extent. So don't come at me saying I'm a Labour or Greens shill, because if they were in power and doing the same, I would not be holding back either. Even in these 2 cent segments, I will try to back up my opinions with the facts that I'm basing them on. And as nice as it feels to be validated when your predictions come true, I truly hope that I'm wrong in my expectations this time. But I must say that both here and overseas, the manipulation of information by people and parties in power seems to have become the norm, and it's kind of sad to see. Hopefully the next My 2 Cents segment will be on something more uplifting. I won't share my thoughts on the Public Offenders Registry here, as I already covered that in the My 2 Cents segment of this video, and you're welcome to check that out now that this video is done. See ya. And discuss the topic in some detail in the My 2 Cents segment. I've turned into a Kiwi.